Welcome. I'm Dan Close, and I'm the FCC moderator. And I'd just like to welcome you all here today. But before I do that, I'd like to also welcome Mike Riker, our guest organist. And we were treated to a beautiful prelude, so thank you so much. It's nice to see each of you today. If you are a visitor, we'd really like to get to know you. And there's a little blue card in front of you in the pew rack. Yes, thank you, Carol. And so if you would just fill that out and put it in the offering plate, we would really appreciate that. Our church is an open and affirming church. We welcome all. And we're especially welcoming to those who are seeking a spiritual home. We are so happy whenever we see visitors, and whenever we see new faces, and whenever young families or anybody comes to visit First Congregational Church. So, today we also mark an important event in the history of our church. A good number of our members of our church are about 100 miles north of here, and they're celebrating worship in the beauty of nature at Camp Adams, our denominational family camp. So we want to send special greetings to them, and also offer our blessings and travel mercies for them as they return to Eugene. Today is also a special day because it's the last Sunday that Pastor Nancy Allison will be with us. She's been such a blessing to us over these 2.5 months. And I know when I first met her, I got this exceptionally warmth and caring nature from her. And she's such a perfectly balanced minister in the sense that she's warm and kind and thoughtful, a heck of a good preacher. And we come to find out that she's also very skilled as an organizational person, but she likes to come in to the congregation with a little bit of a splash. So why don't we all welcome Pastor Nancy as she arrives. And since we have a full agenda today, I'm going to take the opportunity to do something that's a little bit out of the organized program. If you remember, last week the board had an ice cream social, and we hosted that for everybody after church. But we also had this gift that we wanted to give her, which is a token of our esteem for her presence here. And we wanted her to have this somewhere in her home to remember the beauty of the Oregon coast. And of course, this is the Hasita Lighthead from a different perspective. And we wanted her to have this so that she remembers that she has been a beacon of light for our lives. And we are so appreciative. And so thank you so much.
That is gorgeous.
Yeah. Now, let's begin worship. May the peace of Christ be with you.
And with your spirit.
Please respond with me in the call to worship. We look to the future with hope.
Yet we see
We look to the future with hope.
Yet we have many concerns.
We look to the future with hope.
Yet the world is filled with hatred and warfare.
We look to the future with hope, where the living God calls us forward.
We
Seek the dawning of morning, a new community of peace and goodwill. We look to the future with hope, where we may pray, seek, serve, and worship our wondrous God. Today's gospel lesson is from Luke 17, 11 through 19. Just a bit of context. Jesus is on his way to the cross. He's traveling between Galilee and Samaria. He's focused not so much on himself, but he's focused on those that are outcasts and marginalized. Jesus, the great healer, is represented in numerous stories and parables. But this one is a unique one because while the healing is crucial, the message of thankfulness and faith stands forward. Jesus also points out that the only person to come and thank him is a doubly marginalized person, meaning he also is a Samaritan in addition to having leprosy. All the other 10 that were healed were Jews. So, Jesus emphasizes that it's gratitude and faith that's important message from this passage. Please hear the sacred scriptures. On the way to Jerusalem, Jesus was going through the region between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a village, 10 lepers approached him. Keeping their distance, they called out, saying, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." When he saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were made clean. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. He prostrated himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus asked, "Were not 10 made clean? But the other 9, where are they? Was none of them found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner?" Then he said to him, "Get up and go on your way. Your faith has made you well."
Okay. Okay. Good morning. Can you hear me okay? Yay. Okay, so I'm Valerie Hazen, and this is Carol Barnard, and we're going to be leading you today in an embodied prayer called Deep Peace. And it's based on a Celtic blessing that was in the bulletin, and it's dedicated to Pastor Nancy. So we're going to sing it for you first with gestures, and then Carol is going to say the words, and I will just show you the gestures, and you can do it with me. And then the third time, we will sing it together. And we'll probably sing it 3 times total. Okay? All right, so here we go.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah. You
Okay.
give the starting note.
Okay. And oh, sorry, the words are in your bulletin. Okay. Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the silent stars. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the silent, quiet earth. May peace fill your soul. Let peace make you whole. Okay, so if everybody would rise, and we'll practice the gestures. Okay.
Deep peace
So you're going to be raising your arms,
of the running wave to you.
and then make a wave movement.
And back down. Deep peace
Raise your arms
of the silent stars.
all the way and look at the sky.
And smile. And arms down. Deep peace
Raise your arms
of the flowing air to you.
and just make wind movements.
And down. Deep peace
And then about halfway,
of the quiet earth.
turn your hands over and then down to the earth.
May peace fill your
So
soul.
you're raising your arms out and then bring it to your heart,
Let peace make you whole.
and you're extending your arms. Enjoy.
And if your notes go up when ours go down, or the other way around, let go of it. This is not about being right, but about being in it.
And if you would just like to sing it and not do the gestures, if you're uncomfortable with the gestures, that's great.
Or the other way.
Just join in, however you want.
Okay.
Here we go.
Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace silent stars, deep peace of the growing air to you, deep peace of the quiet earth, may peace fill your soul. Let peace make you whole. Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the silent stars. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth. May peace fill your soul. Let peace make you whole. Pastor Nancy.
The last time?
Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the silent stars. Deep peace, flowing air of the flowing air to you. Deep peace, quiet earth of the quiet earth. May peace fill your soul. Fill your soul. May peace make you whole.
Thank you, everyone. Please join me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, Mother, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Well, this is a really well-rehearsed sermon today because that's what I was doing. I was going over it one more time. So hear these words from the prophet Jeremiah this morning. These are the words of the letter that the prophet Jeremiah sent from Jerusalem to the remaining elders among the exiles, and to the priests and prophets and all the people whom Nebuchadnezzar had taken into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. It says, "Thus says the living God of hosts, the God of Israel, to all the exiles whom I have sent into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon, build houses and live in them. Plant gardens and eat what they produce. Take wives and have sons and daughters. Take wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage, that they may bear sons and daughters. Multiply there and do not decrease. But seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the living God on its behalf. For in its welfare you will find your welfare. For thus says the living God of hosts, the God of Israel, do not let the prophets and diviners who are among you deceive you. Do not listen to the dreams that they dream, for it is a lie. They are prophesying to you in my name. I did not send them. For thus says the living God, only when Babylon's 70 years are completed will I visit you, and I will fulfill to you my promise and bring you back from this place. For surely I know the plans I have for you, says the living God of hosts, plans for your welfare and not your harm, to give you a future with hope. As a prophet of the living God, Jeremiah is the original performance artist. In Jeremiah 18, God instructs him to go down to the potter's house, where the Holy One will speak to him. While there, the potter messes up a piece and he smashes that pot back into a lump of clay. And that's when God speaks through Jeremiah. Can I not do with you, O house of Israel, just as this potter has done? Jeremiah has been striving to warn the people away from their idolatry. And there is where at the potter's house, is where he reminds them that God's intention is to love all of us into wholeness, into the shape that is ours alone, so that we may offer the gifts that are ours alone with others around us. The people do not repent. In Jeremiah 28, the prophet takes the yoke of an oxen, which is no small thing. Those are big animals. And he wears it through the streets to proclaim that God will punish this people by placing them under the domination and control of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. Soon it happens. Today's text is 10 years later, as Jeremiah writes these same exiles, now in Babylon, an open letter, and begins with the prophetic formula. Thus says Yahweh Sabaoth, the living God of hosts, the God of Israel. Now the greeting matters because of a conflict described in chapter 28. Jeremiah has been telling the remnant who remain in Jerusalem that these captives will not see an immediate return home. But Hananiah, another prophet who serves the powers that be, directly contradicts Jeremiah and says, oh, no, you're going to be back in 2 short years' time. Hananiah is a prophet like many of ours. He tells the people what they want to hear. But Jeremiah, who serves the living God alone, has a different message. The past you knew is gone forever. God will still work in your lives, but you must embrace the reality where you now reside. The exiles were edging toward despair, and Jeremiah tells them they must build houses, plant gardens there, make babies, pray for the Babylonians, and don't listen to false prophets. For surely I know the plans I have for you, plans for your welfare and not for harm, to give you a future with hope. The exiles who have been captured and taken to Babylon were not the dirt farmers of Judea. They were the ruling class, the elite, the ones who had the wealth and power of the city at their disposal. and they are experiencing loss they have never known before. They have been isolated, separated from their families and their home. Their routines around which they had created meaning, including their temple worship, are gone. Many, many of their family members have died in battle, and they have done what we all do when hope is dissolving into despair. They have absolutized the painful present reality and drawn the dark conclusion: the way it is now is the way it will always be. They have lost all vision of a hopeful future. Andrew Lester is a Disciples of Christ therapist and seminary professor, and he writes that the loss of hope resides in the death of our future story. He believes we cannot separate who we have been and who we are now from who we imagine we are becoming. And when the story we have lived by is cut off, our hoping process is threatened. When COVID hit America and all the churches within the nation, we were all turned upside down. We scrambled for new ways of worshiping, new ways of being in community, new ways of connecting. Zooming became the newest word in our vocabulary. We did our best to follow Jeremiah's wisdom, leaning into tomorrow, creating a new future with the resources now available. In his commentary on this passage, Walter Brueggemann writes, "People who hope have complete confidence in God's coming shalom, a rule of order, peace, security, justice, and abundance. Without denying any present disorder or confusion or distortion, people who hope and watch and wait and pray and expect know that God's shalom, God's wholeness, is already as good as done. People who hope are people who act in the conviction that God's future is also reliably present tense." Brueggemann concludes, "The future is not in hand, but it is at hand." Our hope for the future will not rest on any minister's preaching skills, any governing board's organizational skills, or the voices and gifts of our finest musicians. Our hope for the future resides in God alone. Lester calls such hope a transfinite hope. It is that hope which resides solely in God's care and keeping, not yours or mine. Brueggemann points out that there are three most often quoted qualities of God in the Hebrew Scriptures. They are hesed, steadfast love, rahaman, compassion, and amunah, faithfulness. It is only the steadfast love, compassion, and faithfulness of the living God who can carry the weight of our longing and our hope. Our future resides with our relationship and our connection to God. When we put our confidence in God alone, it frees us from the disappointments that life offers us daily. It also frees us to invest our energies in finite causes like crafting a church budget, parenting our children, going to work and school, and striving for that simple thing, to bring justice into the world. When our hope rests in God, we find the courage, the inspiration, the motivation to reach beyond ourselves. When our hope is in the God who insists on loving us, insists on remaining faithful to us, no matter how inadequate our responses, we will finally have a hope that will not disappoint. We all know people who have lost their future when the vision upon which they had built their dreams proved to be a hollow idol, easily crushed. One man who had a chance to recreate his future story was Alfred Nobel. In 1867, Nobel patented a new invention from a mix of nitroglycerin and explosives. Dynamite was a new, more deadly way to make war and for Nobel to make great wealth. In 1888, when he was visiting in France, his brother died, and the local newspaper, thinking it was Alfred, ran an obituary for him. The headline, and my French is terrible, Le Marchand de la Mort est mort, or The Merchant of Death is dead. It went on to read, Dr. Alfred Nobel, who became rich by finding ways to kill more people faster than ever, died yesterday. Nobel was horrified that this was his legacy. This was the way his future story would be told. So to change that story, he donated and established awards for contributions to humanity. Last year's Nobel Prize for Peace was awarded to journalists Maria Ressa and Dmitry Muratov for their efforts to safeguard freedom of expression, a precondition for democracy and lasting peace. They received the Peace Prize for their courageous fights for freedom of expression in the Philippines and in Russia. First Congregational's future story is always expanding. With every new member, we expand our reach into this world and our opportunities for wider ministry. With every new financial commitment, we secure our generosity. With every worship service, the Spirit enlarges our hearts. In his essay, A Future Not Our Own, which Bishop Kent Utner wrote in memory of the assassinated priest Oscar Romero, we hear these refrains. We accomplish in our lifetime only a fraction of the magnificent enterprise that is God's work. Nothing we do is complete. Which is another way of saying that the kingdom always lies beyond us. No statement says all that could be said. No prayer fully expresses our faith. No confession brings perfection. No pastoral visit brings wholeness. No program accomplishes the church's mission. No set of goals and objectives include everything. This is what we are about. We plant the seeds that will one day grow. We water the seeds already planted, knowing that they hold future promise. We cannot do everything, and there is a sense of liberation in realizing this. It enables us to do something, and to do it very well. It may be incomplete, but it is a beginning, a step along the way, an opportunity for the Lord's grace to enter and do the rest. We may never see the end results, but that is the difference between the master builder and the worker. We are workers, not master builders, ministers, not messiahs. We are prophets of a future, not our own. We need places like First Congregational, where we can tell and hear new stories, where we can generate options and develop trust. We need places like this filled with redemptive relationships, where we refuse to abandon those who have suffered and are suffering. We need places like this, where we can become Christ to one another, where we can be hope bearers, bringing life and hope and encouragement to each other. We need the kind of tomorrow that is grounded in a transfinite hope which offers us an open-ended horizon, a new future with hope. At the end of my ministry here, I offer the same words I shared with my congregation in Charlotte when I retired. If you are to thrive in the community of faith known as First Congregational United Church of Christ, it matters where your hope is grounded. If your hope is attached to a lesser God, hundreds of worshipers filling this place, a surplus of $1 million budget, any pastor, your hopes will be dashed. These lesser gods cannot carry the weight of salvation. For the foundation of hope to sustain us, it must be grounded in the character of God. For it is God alone who secures our tomorrow and promises each of us and this congregation a future with hope. Shall the people of this congregation build this house for God alone? Shall First Congregational plant gardens in this fertile place? Shall First Congregational seek the welfare of this city and pray for her inhabitants? Shall First Congregational listen always for the voice of God to lead you forward? Shall First Congregational live into God's new future? May it be so, Lord. May it be so. Amen.
good. It's okay. Good morning. As we prepare for the offering, I invite you to consider one or maybe two things why First Congregational is your church home. What do you love and appreciate about this place? I'll tell you a couple of mine. About 10 years ago, I walked through the door for the first time, and shortly after that, I ended up in the choir loft, and I have found a home within a home. So you will never hear me sing a solo, just warning you that you are okay. But I love the choir and I love singing. The other thing that happened, no matter who's up here giving the sermon, I know they write it just for me. Pastor Nancy was in her office just a little while going, what does Susie Leo need to hear? So I don't mind sharing it with you, but that's how I feel every time I listen to the sermon up here. So thank you all for however you have contributed to the church, and you're in the right place and doing the perfect thing. So as you prepare your gifts, I want to share one last thing. At another church, we taught the children to say something, and it really applies to all of us. And can you hear me? I have a loud voice. I'm just going to tell you out here. This is what we taught the children to say. You're in the God place at the God time, doing the God thing. So as you do your God thing and get your contributions prepared as the plate is passed, good for you. We are all in the God place at the God time, always doing the God thing. Thank you, and would the ushers please come forward.
I don't know whether this got said earlier, but Mike Ryder, our musician, is playing for the Offertory a piece in honor of our campers. It is entitled By Smoldering Embers. So he wanted you to be aware that when he saw that many of our members were away at camp, that was his offering. May you go in God's great love, knowing that the one who has held you to this day will hold you always, knowing that our living, loving God is with you in all ways, walking by your side. Go in God's grace and love.